moving on, because now we're getting to the heavy hitting stuff of the ICC issuing arrest warrants for Benjamin Netanyahu for alleged Gaza war crimes. This is from The Guardian. Joe Biden describes as outrageous the warrants for Israel's prime minister and former defense minister, which put them at risk of detention if they go to some other countries. So The Guardian says the International Criminal Court has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the country's former defense minister Yoav Gallant and the Hamas military leader Mohammed Deif for alleged war crimes related to the Gaza war. It is the first time that leaders of a democracy and Western-aligned state have been charged by the court in the most monumentous decision of its 22-year history. Netanyahu and Gallant are at risk of arrest if they travel to any of the 124 countries that signed the Rome Statute establishing the court. Israeli claims that it has killed Deif in an airstrike in July, but the court's pretrial chamber said it would continue to gather information to confirm his death. The chamber ruled that there were reasonable grounds to believe Netanyahu and Gallant bore criminal responsibility as co-perpetrators for the war crime of starvation as a method of warfare and the crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. The three-judge panel also said it has found reasonable grounds to believe Deif was responsible for crimes against humanity and war crimes including murder, torture, rape, and hostage-taking relating to the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7, 2023, in which fighters killed more than 1,200 people, mostly Israeli civilians, and kidnapped 250. So this is stating what happened on October 7th. The U.S. criticized the move, with Joe Biden describing the warrants in a statement on Thursday night as outrageous. Let me be clear once again. I wanted to get ice cream first, but let me be clear on this. Whatever the ICC might imply, there is no equivalence, none, between Israel and Hamas, except payment methods. We will always stand with Israel against threats to its security. Netanyahu's office denounced the chamber's decision as anti-Semitic. Again, the boy that cried wolf. Here we go again. Israel utterly rejects the false and absurd charges of the International Criminal Court, a biased and discriminatory political body. The office said in a statement, adding that no war is more just than the war Israel has been waging in Gaza. Again, the whole purpose of the international court system, the reason we have the system in place, is because if we allowed acceptance to say Netanyahu commencing this genocide and allowing this to occur and committing war crimes, then every country would be committing war crimes. Canada will just invade Alaska. We'll go into Greenland. We'll take that apart. France will go into the UK. We'll just have wars about. Everyone should be in war at this point. Because the ICC doesn't matter, according to Israel, according to the United States. Both two countries that don't comply with this court system. And they want to talk about, justice. They want to talk about legal pursuit. They want to talk about, law and order. Just how hypocritical it all is. The statement pointed to investigation into accusations of sexual misconduct against the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan, who sought the charges against the three men in May. Khan, 54, has denied the allegations, said he will cooperate with the investigation. That it seems like they're pulling a Julian Assange on this guy. It seems like that. Netanyahu said in a video statement, "No outrage, anti-Israel decision will prevent us and will not prevent me from continuing to defend our country in every way. We will not yield to pressure." The U.S. National Security Council issued a statement fundamentally rejecting the court's decision. "We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision," the statement said, without any detail of the alleged errors. So, here's Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre Miss Lies a lot. Liza Minnelli. Lies as in, lies. Trying to work in that joke. Here's Jean-Pierre, the current White House press secretary, denouncing the ICC and taking Joe Biden's verbiage in saying that even though, the United States is supposed to be this law and order and we're going to protect the streets and all this stuff, it doesn't matter about international law. We're violators, so who cares? Criminals stick together. This is what they said.
This is the first time I've had an opportunity to speak to this at the podium. So let me just say more broadly that we fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter. You've heard us say this before. Whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no evidence, none, between Israel and Hamas. There's just none. In coordination with partners, including Israel, we are discussing certainly the...
Except for every in-depth publication that has stated numerous times, and there's documentation to prove that Israel's government, Benjamin Netanyahu and his Knesset cabinet members, paid Hamas. They paid this terrorist group to operate as a terrorist group. Just like how Hillary Clinton admitted in 2010 that the United States compiled a bunch of Pakistanis, gave them munitions and CIA training to install the Mujahideen, which later became Al-Qaeda and ISIS. So, again, criminals all think alike, apparently.
Those next steps, what that's going to look like. And to your question about sanctions, that's basically kind of just answered it in that last part of what I said. We're in consultation with our partners and also, which include Israel, about our next steps. We fundamentally reject that the ICC has jurisdiction over the situation. And so that's something that we've been pretty clear about, and we'll continue to do so.
It's something we're very clear about. That's why I'm putting my head down in shame over this and ruffling my papers, pretending to not see you, because really I'm just selling out our security and nobody wants this war to exist. But, I'm working for the deep state, and yeah, we're condemning the ICC. Law and order! Justice! Remember when Joe Biden was supposed to be elected? He's supposed to restore the soul of America. Remember that? That was the soul of America. And here we are rejecting a court to prosecute a mass murderer. And notice how they didn't say this when it came to the ICC's decision on Vladimir Putin. You notice how they didn't say about that. They didn't say the ICC was irrational. They didn't say that they rejected it. They said they were full for it. Oh, the ICC's putting the pressure on Putin? Yeah, I'm definitely on board for that. Oh, they're going after Netanyahu too? Oh, God, no. No, they're a radical group now. They're anti-Semitic. Because no one goes against our allies. Remind us again why exactly it's an ally? No one seems to ever answer that question. No one seems to ever answer that question directly. But here's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in that same test kitchen that we saw earlier. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau confirms Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant will be arrested if they step foot in Canada after ICC's decision to issue arrest warrants. Now, granted, Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant are going to step in Canada ever. They had no intentions of stepping into Canada. They had no intentions of arriving at these countries to begin with anyway. So us to say this and announce this as we're also aiding NATO's alignment into Israel, it's all just an absolute farce. It's just, him just blurting this is, again, paying coverage to make himself look good towards paying both sides of this genocide. Because if he really stepped forward, he would be pressuring America. He'd be pressuring allies to understand that the International Court's decision is based off decades and long-stated proof that many individuals are witnessing and dealing with. every every accusation of Israel performing a genocide onto Palestine and Lebanon has been proved and documented through many publications, including Israeli publications, including their own press, stating that this is a genocide, that Benjamin Netanyahu is a warlord. That's why Israelis protested against him before October 7th. Good timing that they had to have this terrorist attack to randomly happen on October 7th, right before, and right after people were protesting against Netanyahu being a warlord. Imagine how that worked out. So here's Foghorn Leghorn, Senator Lindsey Graham, the guy who abandoned his own state. The guy who abandoned his own state in the time of need of hurricane. Remember that? He said on camera that, oh, forget about, hurricane victims. Forget about that. We got to care about Israel. We got to care about Ukraine. We got to care about those things. So here he is, just being an absolute soulless piece of garbage he is, announcing threats to other allies that comply with the ICC and not comply with Israel. Listen to this.
If you are going to help the ICC as a nation enforce their arrest warrant against Bibi and Gallant, the former defense minister, I will put sanctions on you as a nation. You're going to have to pick the rogue ICC versus America. I'm working with Tom Cotton to have legislation passed as soon as we can to sanction any country that aids in.
Again, he was one of the people that cheerleaded the ICC when it came involved with Vladimir Putin. Yeah, take that guy down. He's a dictator. He's a warlord. He's crazy. How dare he defend the people of the Donbass region? We need to protect Ukraine and those neo-Nazis. Oh, you're going after Bibi? No. And we're going to take all of you down. We're going to take all you down, sanction you. Sanction our allies. Sanction our allies. Which, as, previous indications of when they tried to sanction, like Russia, for example, didn't exactly work out for the United States. The Russian economy grew, and that's why you had BRICS to go against the U.S. dollar. That's why you had this coalition of other nations. So if they put pressure on, for example, Canada to say that, hey, we're going to put sanctions on your economy, we're going to put sanctions on your country if you don't comply with us. Canada could just walk away and say, forget it, I'm not going to join the United States. I'll just go join BRICS. I'll form my own coalition of economic nations. I think that's the mindset now that most people are waking up to, is that we're not hellbound to the United States for everything. People like Lindsey Graham think that. They think that the world has to bend a knee and foot to the United States. But as we saw with BRICS, as we're seeing with other countries that are just going away from the traditional U.S. dollar, they're going to other currencies. They're aligning themselves with China, and they're aligning themselves with India. They're aligning themselves with Russia and other countries. That we're not beholden to the United States pressure. We're not beholden to all these sanction talks. Oh, we're going to come after you and sanction you. That's going to put more damage on the United States, if anything else. That's going to put more damage on you and because of your ignorance. Because of your ignorance, thinking that if we sanction places like Canada and the UK, oh, they're definitely going to cave to us. They're going to cave to the Israeli regime. As you've seen already, that other nations are getting away from the U.S. dollar. They're getting away from the U.S. imperialism, and they're worried about this. They're worried about that. So that's why they have figures like Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton and other individuals in the United States to mastermind this plan of, oh my God, how are we going to pressure and extort these nations into our compliance? Because next thing you know, God forbid, the ICC might go after us. And he's about to say that. Listen.
in the beds the arrest of any politician in Israel. What they're doing in Israel is trying to prevent a second Holocaust. So to any ally, Canada, Britain, Germany, France, if you try to help.
Hey, sometimes the best way, it's an old adage, the best way to prevent a mass Holocaust is to do a Holocaust on someone else. I think that's like a Chinese proverb, right? You know, to avoid mass murder, you got to go and murder someone else. Oh, the excuses people make for this is just mind-bending. It's mind-bending and boggling and just completely hypocritical to any value they have. They have no values. These are soulless, bloodthirsty goons. Lindsey Graham is a bloodthirsty goon. And the reason he's speaking about this is because Graham points the finger at ICC. If they do this to Israel, we are next. And that's the one thing I could say critically about the ICC is that, hey, you guys, if you're going to do this to Israel, if you're going to do this to Russia, it's about time you arrest, U.S. war criminals and North American war criminals. It's about time you take people like Dick Cheney and George Bush and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi and anyone that's been complicit with the outrageous warfare that's been going on for decades, for my entire lifespan on this planet. Yeah, we need to hold them accountable. I hope they do. That's my big criticism towards the ICC is they need to pursue further investigations in this. If we really care about, justice and safety and humanity, all the things that they are noting to other countries about, then they should be prosecuting Lindsey Graham. Especially the fact that he abandoned his own freaking state at a time of need. Like, how are you U.S. Senator of South Carolina when you are not obligated to serve the people of South Carolina? Like, no wonder why people hate the establishment. No wonder why, because they know that they're a bunch of bloodthirsty criminals. They know they have no compliance with the people. They have no obligation to serve the people that elect them into office. And the people are sick and tired of it. So that's why they have to get like Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton and all these people to, point the finger and say, hey, any of you that go along with the ICC, go along with this criminal court, anyone that points the finger at us, we're going after you. Here's the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He says, Israel does have the right to cut off electricity and water. This clown needs to be arrested along with Netanyahu and Gallant. That's a man advocating for a war crime. That's a man advocating for a war crime. Again, imagine, just put the shoe on the other foot. Imagine if they said this about Russia. Russia has the right to cut off electricity and water to Ukraine. Imagine it said that about China. China has the right to cut off the water and electricity for Taiwan. If we don't hold standards to war crimes, if we don't have a standard value of jurisdiction to protect people away from war criminals, then the entire jurisdiction is just off the table, and any country could just go into a war catastrophe. That's why we have the international courts. That's why these have been implemented post-World War II, to prevent another world war. But clearly it hasn't worked out because we have a bunch of bloodthirsty criminals that want to self-destruct the planet for their own intentions. Because they know that people like us are smart enough to wake up to realize that these people are goons and they need to be pressured or kicked out of office. If they don't comply with our safety, our national security, then they need to be pulled out of office. And they're afraid. They're afraid. That's why they're pressuring and putting so much emphasis on escalating to World War III tensions. Because they are in the last straw. They're the last straw. And the only thing they can do left is to put the world at the brink of self-destruction. Here's this guy even points out. Now, I figured this is trying to make a joke about how Bibi is getting arrested or whatnot. But he actually makes a good point about this. So, Barack Obama responsible for military actions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria during his presidency with drone strikes and bombings, causing thousands of civilian casualties. No arrest warrant by the ICC. George W. Bush, responsible for initiating the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading to hundreds of thousands of deaths, including widespread civilian casualties. No arrest. Tony Blair, co-responsible for the Iraq War alongside George W. Bush, under the pretext of finding weapons of mass destruction, which led to the massive loss of life and instability for the region. No ICC arrest. So like I said, my biggest criticism of all this, my biggest criticism of the ICC is it's good that they're putting the pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu or Bibi and the Israeli militants that are causing the destruction of the genocide in Gaza. But if they're actually really have proper jurisdiction, if they really put a front out to combating war crimes, then yes, they should be adding this to the list. They should be pressuring our politicians. They should be disavowing people like Dick Cheney so they wouldn't have time to support someone like Kamala Harris and be arrested for the heinous war crimes and the outrageous lie that they told Americans to pressure us into an illegal invasion of Iraq for his benefit. So they should be escalating the arrest warrants and going after these people if they really are concerned about war crimes, if they really have a set standard on prosecuting people that are causing the most harm to the world. They should be doing this. But again, we live in a corrupted society. We live in a society where people like Barack Obama get a peace prize after they drop so many bombs. They ran out of bombs, so what do? You honor them with a peace prize. A Nobel Peace Prize. Because the world just makes that much sense. You honor the villain. You honor the people that are doing the most massacre, instead of honoring the people that actually do a thing for peace. In fact, the most peaceful people are the ones that get slaughtered and arrested. Think about how crazy that is. The world that we live in. And then how people like Lindsey Graham are giving a moral lecture on why we can't arrest people like Bibi Netanyahu and how devastating it is, how you need to pressure our allies into compliance with Israel. Just absolutely insane. So that's just incredible to witness that Lindsey Graham would actually say that out in the open. But as it stands right now, I think there's also Hungary that allowed Bibi to